So we're going to move now from sunny Argyll and Bute, and we're going to move across to sunny Dundee, and we're going to take you to Grove Academy. And Andy Creamer, who's the deputy head of Grove Academy, will introduce himself and set the context for Grove Academy, and tell you a little bit about what they're doing there. And as you can imagine, Grove Academy is a very, very different type of school, a different type of context, both in terms of size and in location to Dunoon Grammar. So over to you, Andy.
Okay, thanks. As Ollie said there, see my presentation okay?
Yeah.
I'm okay?
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
As Ollie said there, a lot of similar challenges, but quite different contexts. And one of the things we tried to communicate with our parents, even with some of our neighbouring schools, some schools that are quite close to us, is that I think the context of schools are very important in this process. Because we get a lot of comparisons made with ourselves and a couple of other schools nearby. They don't take into account things like the size of the building, the number of staff and pupils that we've got, and so on. Some background information about Grove. We've got 1,300 pupils. We are pretty much full. We don't have much extra staff capacity. A lot of our staff are on minimum non-contact time. Staffing is probably the biggest constraint that we've had. And we had the model back in June. That was something that limited at the time some of the things that we could do. We've got 240 in S1, S2 and S3. We're roll capped, and as we move into the senior phase, even within our fourth year, we really can't take anybody extra, and given the way that we've blocked maths and English. We're in a very urban area. Most of our pupils are relatively close by, so we don't have the problem that exists in Dunoon, where transport is a problem, and that has definitely had an impact on the approach that we've taken, which is really bringing people in morning or afternoon streams. We've a very middle-class catchment area, affluent area, but also some middle-class parents who've got expectations about the amount of time that they expect their children to be in school. Our building is relatively new. We've been really fortunate when we measured the rooms out, and just about all the rooms that we've got in the school we can fit in within the 2 metre distance. We can fit in half-size classes. There are some exceptions to that, one of them being home economics, and we've had to try and work around some individual arrangements when we're trying to fit into some of these classes. We have, and we made use of previously, things like our gyms and so on, setting up classrooms and gyms to take up sort of overspill, and also in some areas where we had staffing difficulties, and we've had a few members of staff shielding, a couple of staff that are still shielding. So what we're trying to do is have enough space where we're going to have more than 15 pupils in one area, but still within the 2 metre social distancing. Or we've tried to take advantage of things like webcams and so on, so that staff could deliver things from home. Well, also over the course of the last 6 months, and it's been useful, we've taken advantage of some of the online offers from SILT. So we've been delivering Mandarin online and Arabic online, and they've been able to work just as normal because everything's been delivered remotely in that sense. Overall facilities, we've found that we've got enough rooms to use. We looked at trying to take advantage of things like local church halls and so on, but we didn't really need to use them. The real big problem that we've got as far as our building's concerned is the social areas. We've got a dining hall that seats 182 for 1,300 kids. Massive problem. Our corridors aren't big enough for the size of the school. I think the school was built for something like 1,100 or 1,200 maximum, and things are really tight. So that raises certain problems when it comes to social distancing and so on. We've also had, with the model that we've used, we've based it on the model that we were looking at doing last June. We had a fair amount of parental feedback on that, generally positive, but some concerns about what we were offering at that time in fourth year, but was linked to staffing, and that's influenced the approach that we've taken in relation to what we're planning over the course of the next 3 weeks. Our priorities, maintaining social distancing. The room size, as I said, was okay, but when it comes to breaks and lunches, we're trying to avoid that problem by not having any. So bringing kids in the morning for a 2.5 hour slot, and then those kids go away home, and then a new set of kids come in after what is equivalent to the staff lunchtime, with nobody in between the morning and afternoon, apart from those kids who are entitled to free school meals. For those kids who are entitled to it, we basically have a packed lunch. We're looking at the kids picking those up and then taking them away. We still have hub kids in, so they'll be in over lunchtime. And for one of the things we had to do with our fourth years, we're going to have one day when all our fourth years are in. So it was trying to find enough space where we could accommodate people within the 2 metre social distancing over the lunchtime break. Corridors are a problem as well. So we're trying to minimise movement in corridors. We looked originally at a one-way system, but just because the shape of our building, we can't have a one-way system. So as far as the senior phase goes, we won't have any movement at all. Kids will be in for a subject based on each column per day, and when they're in, they'll be in the class. They might have a break, but it'll be within the class, and then when they're finished, they'll leave, and they'll leave by the nearest exit. We're trying to prioritise the senior phase initially, trying to make sure that we cover all the columns, all the subjects, so everybody has equal access. Easier to do in 5th and 6th year, where we've got 5 columns and one for each of the days. When it comes to our 4th year, a bit more tricky. So what we've done is we've got 2 columns coming in on the one day, and we've had to set our streams up. So half the year group is in one stream, half the year group is in a different stream, so they're not clashing. And I'll show you an example of that in just a minute. The feedback that we've had from parents and from what we've seen from staff is there's been a drop-off in the BGE and the engagement from that. So we're looking at bringing our kids back in. We've tried to focus on making sure we've got guidance teachers and others available. We've taken a particular approach that also tries to make sure that we are taking into account staff health and well-being as well. And then on top of that, trying to balance it all with the remote learning option, and similar to Dunoon, trying to make sure that we take advantage of what's available through the national e-learning offer, making it very clear to our parents that what the expectation was leading up to this, with staff being live online or delivering some live lessons, won't be there. And that work will be placed on online, or people will be directed to some of these extra resources. One of the challenges we faced recently was the increase in numbers in the hub. We've still got a relatively small number of vulnerable kids, given the nature of a catchment area, but we do have a number of key worker families. So, for example, both parents working in the health service and so on, and we've had increasing numbers over the past couple of weeks. That's meant more staff have had to be drafted in to that. When it comes to other mitigations, we've concentrated on making sure kids come in through certain entrances, and that particularly in the senior phase, kids will be in the one room, so we'll have any cleaning to do. It's only cleaning at the end, for example, during lunchtime and so on. This is what it looks like. Our senior phase, we're bringing in 5 columns over the course of the 5 days. We try to tie up these columns with some of the partners we've got. So, for example, we've got a lot of kids who go out to Dundee and Angus College, so we try to make sure one of the columns falls on one of those days. Most of the kids will be working remotely at that time, but we've just heard today that some of the kids will actually be going into the college starting next week, so that should tie up with that. Also, if we're operating streams, it means that if somebody's, for example, is to be on a Tuesday, because most of our college options are on a Monday and Wednesday afternoon, but some are on a Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, we're going to set a staff who will set the streams that will let them know who the college kids who might be required on the Tuesday afternoon are, and we'll ask them to put them in the morning stream when it comes to the Tuesday. We're trying to take overall, if you like, a tutorial approach when it comes to pupils being in school, so that when they're in school, they'll be focusing on interaction with the teacher, feedback from previous work, and then getting work to take away during the course of the rest of the week that they'll work on and then have completed when they come back in. You'll see there on 4th year, we've got 2 columns on the same day on the Monday. That in itself was a bit of a challenge. It took a little bit of time looking at class lists, just trying to make sure we could set up 2 streams where you wouldn't have any kids with their subjects clashing, but it worked out okay. And then when it comes to our 3rd year, what we're looking at doing, we've got eight subjects. We're trying to cover each of them So every week, pupils will get maths and English for half a day, and then the 6 other subjects that they've got, they'll do 2 a week. So over the course of the 3 weeks that we've got until our Easter holidays, they'll be in for 4 half days during that time. We're trying to make sure that we stagger things so that our senior phase kids don't come in at the same time as our first, second and third years. Our second years will be coming in for 3 half days. We've built that on non-practical subjects. They'll come in for maths and English on a day where they'll get 1.5 periods as it works out in maths and 1.5 periods in English over the 3 periods. And then on the other 2 half days they're in, they'll be getting a period each of things like modern studies, geography, RE, PSE, and so on. Our first years, we've tried concentrating again on the 3 half days that they're going to be in. They'll get maths, English and modern languages, and then the rest of the time will be practical subjects. Same idea, maximise the time that they've got for maths and English, and the rest of them a period. Idea behind that was concerned about the workload, potential workload and impact on staff. So focusing on in second year, the social subject staff and so on will see the kids and can supply work to them. And then the practical subjects will be putting work online, and then vice versa when it came down to the first years. You'll notice here that you see the 2 streams that we've got. So our first, second and also our third years will be in 8:45 to 11:15. And then 12:45 to 3:15, and then the senior phase coming in a bit later. The Mondays we had to do slightly differently because the 4th years will be in over lunchtime because they're going to be in the morning and in the afternoon because they've got 2 columns. So for example, in for column E in the morning, column F in the afternoon. So we tried to make sure that their lunch times don't clash with the kids who are going to be in the hubs. So we had to adapt the times for those slightly. I think some of the key things that have come in and we had to take into account is trying to be flexible. We've got things like home economics where we won't be able to fit half classes. So we've had to sort of make slight adaptations to that. So those kids will be in when it comes to some of the practical things that they're going to be doing there. Only some kids will come in certain days. Also being aware of non-contact time for staff. So again, trying to be flexible with that. Trying to work out just to make sure we don't overrun with that, but making sure that if we do, we might have to adapt things. So if somebody's 15 minutes over, we might let a senior class away 15 minutes early. Communication's been really important. We've provided information to the Pupil Council. We're going to do narrated PowerPoints for each of the year groups. We've got information that's going to go out to all our parents. We'll put stuff on the website. We'll put stuff on Twitter already to keep them up to spec with things. We'll send out information through a group call to all our parents with a link to the information on the website, and then making sure that they could contact guidance staff and so on, or the subject teachers if they're not sure. It'll be up to the subject teachers to split them up into the streams and let the pupils know when they're coming in. Overall, it's just trying to reinforce the unique context that we're in. Some of the things we can do or can't do are based on the context of our school, but also looking at the implications for remote learning and directing them towards, as Danune were doing, things like EastFile, WestOS, and so on, because we're going to be using a lot of our staff either directly in school with kids or manning the hub. As far as the hub goes, we are not planning to use our PE staff for much, so our PE staff are probably going to be the key, the core of the staff that are going to be manning the hub during the course of the next 3 weeks. Okay.
Thanks, Andy. Again, another whirlwind presentation with lots of ideas there, and I'm very conscious that there are a number of big schools that are on this call that will be interested, I think, probably in terms of how you're dividing learners up. I took it again like a few, lots away from it, but a few highlights if I may. I thought it was really interesting that what you've developed there is almost like a no movement model, and that because of your local circumstance, you've got around the challenge, of that dining hall, which is that fits normally 192 kids for a 1,300 school. The fact that actually the kids aren't coming in, for lunch to sort of make that work. Yet you've openly acknowledged that because you've got S4 coming into the day, that you're trying to think out of the box and creatively around that to sort of make that, make that work as well, which I guess is all part of trying to develop resilience for kids coming back as well. I love what you were saying about SILC, Scotland's National Centre for Languages as well, because really what you were saying there is that during this period that we've had, you've developed resilience in young people around the fact that they're just learning online anyway. So actually for those kids, that's going to continue as normal. And there have been a number of schools that I know that have done that. And to bring these schools back for some kind of pseudo face-to-face instruction would be kind of a bit crazy, really, because they're learning online, and that's how that course is structured anyway. I think it's got to be completely acknowledged that what you're doing here is still subject to change. When you mentioned that the college only got in contact with you today, so now you might have to take these learners in as well. So everything is in complete flux. The other bit that I wanted to mention, I won't go into details about the model and stuff like that because that's very specific to the school. But I really think you and Danoon as well, but should be commended for the way that you're communicating with parents here. I think the one thing that we all appreciate as school leaders, that if we're going to do this successfully, it's that communication with parents and taking that whole of the school community with us, which is going to be fundamentally important. And I would imagine, for a place like Dundee, where you've got a number of different schools in a relatively small geographical area, really, it would be very easy for parents to compare schools to schools. So being very, very clear with your narrative and your vision for exactly why you're doing that, because of school facility, because of the number of teachers, because of the number of learners in year groups, is absolutely paramount. Because, of course, what we want to create here is a culture of collaboration between schools, not a culture of competition between schools. We want schools to be working together to sort of make this work. So I think what you were talking about there with with the pupil council and clear messaging to parents, via a variety of mediums from Twitter to newsletters to everything, is really important. So thanks, Andy. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a few people that are reaching out to you, as they will be with Danoon as well, to copy some of these models and some of these ideas.